Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, class 8. Today we are going to start our 8th unit, that is physical and chemical change. So there are two kinds of changes. One is physical change and the second one is a chemical change. Physical means the things or material which we can see from our naked eye, if a substance is in solid form or if the substance is in liquid form. Whereas chemical changes means that the change in the chemical makeup or chemical composition of a substance is known as chemical change. For an example, the change in the composition of a material in a way that if something liquid is heated, it dries out and formulates a solid after the change in the reaction, then we can say that it has gone through a chemical change. For an example, to study the chemical change in detail, that how does it takes place and how the reactions in a chemical change takes place and how its equations are formed, we will study the entire concept in detail about the reactions of a chemical change. So, moving on to this, that a chemical reaction is basically associated with the chemical change of a substance, and a chemical change is the reaction that takes place inside that material, whereas it is also irreversible and a new defined product is formed after a chemical change. It cannot be reversed like a physical change. And there are certain signs that a chemical change is being taken or taken place. So we can also say that they are the indicators of a chemical change. They may include change in color, change in the change in color of a solution is an indicator of a chemical change. The evolution of a gas is a is an indicator of a chemical change. The change in the temperature of a thing, that it is getting hotter or cooling down, is also an indicator. And the change in the state of that material, it means that it has turned from solid to liquid or liquid to gas, is also one of the indicator of a chemical change. Now, word equation. What is a word equation? An equation that describes the names of the reactants. Whereas in a chemical equation, there are two sides. The left one is known as the reactant side, the right side is known as the products side. The reactants are those materials which react with each other and form something. And on the right side are the products which are newly formed after the joining or combining of the reactants. So when we write the names of these reactants in words, we call it a word equation. For an example, in this, methane and oxygen is getting reacted and carbon dioxide and water is formed. This is a word equation. And if we write the chemical formulae of these substances, methane is represented by CH4 having one carbon and four hydrogen atoms, H2 having one oxygen and one oxygen molecule, that means two oxygen atoms, and the product side is CO2, that is carbon dioxide, and water. The molecular formula of water is H2O. So you can also see that a red colored 2 is added in each side of a chemical equation. It is very important that a chemical equation should be balanced. If we do not balance a chemical equation, then this states that the chemical equation is not correct. Balancing a chemical equation means the number of atoms of one element the number of atoms of one element, for example oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, on the reactant side must be equal to the number of elements on the right hand side, on the product side. For an example, the carbon on the left side, methane, it has one carbon. You can also see that on the right side, CO2 has one carbon. Hydrogen atoms, H4 on the reactant side. And to make water molecule having four atoms, to balance them, we have added 2 on the right side of the equation. When we have added 2, then 2 into 2 is 4. We have balanced hydrogen atoms on the right and the left side, but that makes oxygen atoms 4 as well. So in order to balance oxygen atoms 4, we have added 2 on the left hand side with oxygen. Then when you count these atoms one by one, you will figure out that both sides have same number of atoms of every element. So it is a must duty to write a chemical equation and then you have to balance it. Now the chemical equation. After the word equation, the simplest and the shortest form of writing a chemical equation is its symbolic form. Mg stands for magnesium. O2 stands for oxygen. Magnesium oxide, when it is formed on the right hand side, it is written as MgO. Its formula is MgO. And this equation is not balanced. So in order to balance it, I will give another lecture that how you are going to balance it, and it will also come in the next slides as well. So this is how we write a chemical equation. We put an arrow in between and the arrow shows directions in a chemical equation. So there are some facts that a chemical equation represents, that and what we should do and keep in mind while writing a chemical equation, that its chemical formulas should be correct on both sides, the reactant sides and the product sides, and it should obey the rule of law of conservation of mass. That in simple terms means that the number of elements and their atoms on the left side should balance the number of atoms of the elements on the right side. The mass of every element should be equal. These are the two characteristics which should be obeyed in order to make that chemical equation correct. Well, so first of all, I want to discuss how we write different phases in a chemical reaction. For an example, left hand side you can see H2O. H2O stands for water. S in bracket shows that it is in solid form. The arrow shows its direction. H2L in bracket shows that H2O water is in liquid form. H2OG in bracket shows that the water is in gaseous form. The same thing, that we have to balance a chemical equation according to law of conservation of mass, and the total number of mass of every element should be balanced. The mass should be balanced on equal sides. The number of atoms should be balanced. And here you can see the same magnesium oxide and magnesium plus oxygen is equal to magnesium oxide. Whereas in this chemical equation, you can see that magnesium oxide is not balanced. One magnesium atom on the left, one on the right. Two oxygen atoms on the left and one on the right. So in order to balance it, what we will do, Here the same chemical equation is written. We have added 2 with magnesium and 2 on the left hand side, and on the right hand side we have added 2 with magnesium oxide. And now when you will count the number of atoms, oxygen is having 2 on both sides and magnesium is having 2 atoms on both sides. This is how we balance it, and then nobody can deny this reaction. Well, now the concept of balancing and unbalancing. For an example, here it is written the formula H2C plus Cl2 is equals to HCl. Now you can see we have 2 hydrogens, 2 chlorines, and on the right side 1 HCl. So the number of atoms is not balanced. Hydrogen having 2 on the left, reactants and chlorine having 2, whereas on the product side each have 1. And if I look it under a seesaw, what happens is, here you can see we are having 2 hydrogen but 1 hydrogen here, it is not balanced. 2 chlorine but only 1 chloride here, it's not balanced. So the direction of the seesaw is inclined. So if I want to balance it, what will I do? 2 hydrogen, 2 chlorine, I have added 2 here, and I can see that 2 hydrogen chloride and 2 hydrogen and 2 chlorine, these are balanced now. And here you can see in this side both are balanced, the reactants and the products. And now the seesaw is also balanced. 2 hydrogen, 2 hydrogen, 2 chlorine, 2 chlorine. Now the seesaw is balanced. So this is how we balance a chemical equation. Same is the case here. You can see CH4 methane, O2 oxygen, carbon dioxide and hydrogen and water is formulated on the product side. In order to balance the whole equation, what we will do is, you can see CH4, 1 carbon black and 4 hydrogen. And here you can see after adding 2 here, we can say 2 into 2 is 4, hydrogen is 4, 1, 2, the yellow circles, 3, 4, 2 hydrogen molecules. Now adding 2 on this oxygen side, we are having 2 oxygen molecules and having 1 carbon dioxide. This is how the reactants and the products are balanced, and we can say this is how we balance a chemical equation. I hope you understood it all. So class, tomorrow I'm going to take your science test, short test of the multiple choice questions and a few short question and answers. It would be a short test. I hope you go through this lecture and start reading your unit and learn the short question and answers. Thank you, class.